It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're looking at the films of October 3rd, 2008, and we have a lot of films to get to here. 7 movies, so I'm already wasting your time with this intro here, so let's just get right to it. Marathon session. So let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Disney's Beverly Hills Chihuahua. So yeah, that trailer pretty much makes this movie look to be about as bad as you probably think it is, but yeah, it kind of is, but it's nowhere near as bad as I think it could have been, honestly. You have a story that centers around a female chihuahua, voiced by Drew Barrymore, who gets dog-napped in Mexico and has to escape a Doberman predator named El Diablo with the help of a lonely German shepherd, played by Andy Garcia. And there's a hyperactive male chihuahua, played by George Lopez, who has a desperate crush on her. And yeah, it's the type of story you think it is. It's something you've seen before numerous times, but to the film's credit, the trailer made it look much worse than I think the actual movie is. The actual movie itself it's not a good movie. I'll just get that off the bat here. For an adult, it's definitely not their type of film, but I think kids could eat this up easily, and it is a very harmless film. It's a very harmless movie with effects that don't look terrible overall. I mean, the CG, the way they move their lips and all that, does not look fake at all. I mean, I've seen movies like Good Boy and other movies that are very much similar to this that could have easily done the same thing that they had done. But no, the CG in here actually does work pretty well. Sometimes the jokes in here can land, and there are some fun characters here. I think Drew Barrymore is very good in here. So is Andy Garcia as the German Shepherd, and it's a decent film. It's a film I would say it's fine for what it is. It's definitely one where I would not say to anybody who is over the age of maybe 10, 11 years old, maybe they could probably avoid it. But for little kids, you could show this to them, and it would not be harmless in any way, shape, or form. It would be harmless in any way, shape, or form, is what I'm trying to say here. I would not, but yeah, overall, it is what it is. It's a film that you can see from the trailer, and you're either going to buy into it or you're not. And most adults will probably not buy into it, but as it is, I didn't hate it. I just thought it was just kind of mediocre, kind of bland, and certainly the trailer made it a lot worse than it could have been, so take that for what you will. So with that said, on to the next movie here. One of the good movies this weekend, that's Michael Cera and Kat Dennings and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Again, kind of a story you've seen done before. The story of 2 teenagers, played by Michael Cera and Kat Dennings, who meet when Kat Dennings' character asks Michael Cera's character, to pretend to be her boyfriend for 5 minutes. And the film takes place over the course of the night as they try to find their favorite band's secret show, as well as search for Nora's drunken best friend, played by Ari Grainer. And throughout the night, Michael Cera's ex-girlfriend, played by Alexis Dezina from Fool's Gold, keeps showing up every once in a while. And you also have characters played by Aaron Yo, Jay Baruchel, and it's a really good movie. It's definitely a very underrated film, written by Lorraine Scafina, who has made a lot of really good movies I like. Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, a criminally underrated movie. Hustlers was really good. I've not seen anything else but this director that I think was anything notable. And this was probably the most notable thing he did. And it works really well. It reminds me a lot of like a more mainstream version of Before Sunrise. Instead of Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, you've got Michael Cera and Kat Dennings, who are 2 really good, capable comedic actors who are really working off each other very well. You can buy their chemistry. And they have a lot of good fun stuff in here that makes this film really worth it. The soundtrack overall is pretty decent. And yeah, it's just a good, fun movie. It's a really enjoyable film. A real fun film overall. Definitely a very underrated film. One I would say definitely check it out. So with that said, let's move on to the next movie here. David Zucker with a new spoof movie. This is An American Carol. So yeah, this is definitely one of the lesser Zucker Brothers spoof movies. In fact, it's not even Zucker Brothers. It's one Zucker, David Zucker. And yeah, even somebody like him, the great spoof master that he was, even he's prone to having some pretty bad movies. And this is really not a very good film. Not only is it a bad spoof film by somebody who has made the best spoof movies ever, but it's a parody of A Christmas Carol, one of the great stories of all time. And using that as the set piece of this, you have a story that follows filmmaker Michael Malone, get it. Michael Moore, who's played by Kevin Farley, the brother of Chris Farley, he's visited by 3 spirits to teach him the importance of Independence Day. And these spirits are played by Kelsey Grammer as the general here, Trace Adkins, and also, who's the other ghost here? I think it's, is it JFK? I think it's JFK. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but from what I remember from it, oh no, maybe it's John Voight who plays George Washington, which not a very good role for George Washington, for John Voight, but it's supposed to satirize liberalism in the United States, focusing on Moore's documentaries, and it's not that the movie isn't trying, it's just the fact that, unfortunately, they've fallen into the same category as some of the really bad spoof movies. I mean, the satire and the humor is way too safe and marketable, and unlike something like the Freeburg Seltzer movies, it doesn't work because it's David Zucker. And David Zucker will still do movies where he's not afraid to go dark with the humor when it needs to. I mean, Superhero Movie was a perfect example of that. The scary movie films he did, I think, are good examples of that. This really did feel like he was really watered down in what he was trying to do here. And I think the fact that it was just him this time around, instead of having his brothers there or the other people who would have made this work very well, I think it really stumbles big time here. And not to say that it's bad, it's terrible or anything. There are times when it does work. I like the fact that Kelsey Grammer plays Patton in here. You know, Kelsey Grammer's a guy that, yeah, you put him in anything and he'll make it work. Trace Adkins playing the Angel of Death is pretty funny here. I like Kevin Farley. Kevin Farley, I thought, could have been a really good, could have followed in the footsteps of his brother, John Belushi's brother Jim, who tried to continue on his success after John Belushi died. Of course, as I said before, he's Chris Farley's brother, and I feel like in another world he could have had that same kind of success that Jim Belushi has had, but unfortunately, not with a movie like this. It's a film that really kind of falls apart pretty quickly, and the jokes really aren't that funny. There are cameos in here that really don't add up to much. The humor really isn't all that funny. There's a lot of people in here, like, James Woods is also in here. You have Robert Davi playing one of the terrorists in here. Leslie Nielsen, he's one of the few things in here that actually does kind of work. You have Dennis Hopper, the last thing he did before he passed away. But yeah, this movie, unfortunately, really fell apart pretty quickly, and it just doesn't work, man. I was really let down when I saw this for the first time, because I was really looking forward to it because of David Zucker's name. I mean, the guy will have his name attached to anything, and it will usually turn out comedy gold, except this is probably the only time where it's really backfired on a big time, and it's a shame, because I have a lot of respect for this man. I really do love his work, and yeah, this is the first one that I've seen from him where it's just like, yeah, you really missed the mark on this one big time, so yeah, unfortunately, a hard skip on American Carol. And it's a disappointing hard skip, because I really think there should have been something there, but I think they went too down the safe and marketable route with it to make it something that needed to be as funny as it could have been, but unfortunately, it's not. So with that said, let's move on to the next movie. It's Bill Maher who has a comedy out, comedy documentary, Religulous. I mean, unlike the last movie, this is a political comedy that actually kind of works to the advantage of its leading person in here, Bill Maher, of course, from Politically Incorrect in Real Time. And this is a documentary from the same director of Borat, Larry Charles. And it's a documentary examining and challenging religion and religious beliefs. And if you've ever seen Bill Maher's style of comedy, it definitely fits into what you expect from him. And it can be funny sometimes, and this is definitely a capable documentary. It's a very entertaining one that really does show what makes Bill Maher's comedy style actually kind of work, but I don't know, it's one I probably would never watch again. I was glad I got to see it the first time I did, but I've never really had any real desires to go back to it. Not because it was bad or anything, but just like, I just didn't feel the urge to go back to it after a second time around, but for a one-time watch, it's fine for what it is, so quick review on that one. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, which is Flash of Genius. No, it's just a windshield wiper, Greg Kinnear. I'm sorry. I don't care that this was based off of a true story or not. This is a lame movie. Greg Kinnear plays Robert Kearns, and this is the story of his legal battle against the Ford Motor Company after they developed an intermittent windshield wiper based on the ideas the inventor had patented. And so he basically sues them, and there's a chance for him to get $10 million, but he says he said it's $50 million, I should say, but it's $50 million, and Ford's ready to pay it for him, and Greg Kinnear doesn't do it because he wants the credit for this intermittent windshield wiper. And in the end, they settle out of court for $10 million. So he lost $40 million instead of taking the $50 million that he could have had. And not only that, he destroys his marriage in the process. Lauren Graham plays his wife in the movie. And yeah, at some point, she eventually decides to leave him. And so what do you really take away from this movie? I mean, is anybody out there really going to give you that much praise for a windshield wiper that only works not all the way through? Like, it's not even something that even works all the way through. Like, if it was maybe the creation of the windshield wiper itself, maybe you could have had something there, but no, this isn't the creation of the windshield wiper. It's a different form of the windshield wiper, and it's just like, dude, you could have had $50 million, but no, you have to do it because of the principle of the whole thing, which I hate that line so much. You always hear people talking about that whenever they try to start arguments with people. It's just like, well, you know, it's the principle of the scenario. No, the principle is you want the attention to be centered on you, so you're willing to not stop until you get exactly what you want because you're an obnoxious asshole, which this guy is. I'm sorry, I don't care about this guy's story. This is a lame movie that is not inspiring or inventive whatsoever. And no, I'm not rooting for this guy at the end of it, especially considering that he lost his marriage because of this whole thing. And it's just like, it's a terrible movie. It's a terrible, terrible movie. Flash of Genius, anything but that. So yeah, avoid this one like the plague. So with that said, let's go ahead and get back to some good movies. How about Simon Pegg and How to Lose Friends and Alienate People? Or we could jump into Blindness first before we jump into How to Lose Friends and Alienate People. That was my fault. I actually am recording this after I finished most of recording of the footage of the show already, but I realized I completely forgot to talk about this movie because it was sandwiched right between Flash of Genius and How to Lose Friends and Alienate People. But Blindness, let's talk about this. And really, we don't really need to delve too much into it, honestly, but I needed to include it in there because it did come out this weekend. You have a movie about a society that suffers from an epidemic of blindness, and those first infected are quarantined by the authorities into a mental hospital where the newly created Society of the Blind quickly breaks down. Criminals and the physically powerful prey upon the weak, hoarding the meager food rations and committing horrific acts. There is, however, one eyewitness to the nightmares. A woman, played by Julianne Moore, whose sight is unaffected by the plague, follows her afflicted husband, played by Mark Ruffalo, to quarantine. There, keeping her sight a secret, she guides 7 strangers who have become, in essence, a family, and she leads them out of quarantine and onto the ravaged streets of the city, which has seen all vestiges of civilization crumbling. And this comes from the same director that gave us City of God and also The Constant Gardener, which are 2 really good movies, but we talked about them long enough on the show. But this one not so much. This is a film that has a good idea overall, a very ambitious idea, but it never can go to that nth level to really give it that unique element to stand out on its own. Despite some really good performances across the board from Julianne Moore, Mark Ruffalo, Alice Braga, and a lot of good ideas overall, but just not enough execution there. It doesn't go the full 360 with what they're trying to get across here. What's the overall message of the storyline here? And I feel like that's a real missed opportunity here. And it could have made for something really entertaining and really intriguing, but there's just not enough there to really save the film in particular. And it's a shame because there's a lot of good ideas you can do with a story like this. And it just doesn't work, unfortunately. So, yeah, a hard skip on Blindness, unfortunately. Even though it had some good intentions all across the board, it just didn't lead to what it could have been. So yeah, now let's finally get to How to Lose Friends and Alienate People. Why not? Yeah, drop $50 million on the windshield wiper. That's how you lose friends and alienate people. Okay, I'm off of Flash of Genius. Let's talk about this movie here, which is a good movie. A movie I actually do kind of enjoy. I think it's the better of the 2 Simon Pegg-led movies that he was in this year. You have a story where you have Simon Pegg playing a highly fictional a story where it's about the people that it's based off of a memoir of Toby Young. He plays Sidney Young in this movie, Simon Pegg does, and how it follows a struggle to make it to the United States after an appointment in a magazine, and the names have been changed around here, for dramatic effect, I guess. And it definitely is a much different story than the actual book that it's based off. But I never read the book when it came out, saw the movie. I really liked it. I thought it was actually pretty funny. Simon Pegg stars alongside a really good cast that includes Kirsten Dunst, Danny Houston, Gillian Anderson, Jeff Bridges, Megan Fox coming off of Transformers. It's a real good movie. It's a movie that I think doesn't get the proper attention it deserves. It's definitely the much better of the two movies that he starred in that year. I thought Run Fat Boy Run was not that great of a movie, but this is definitely a film that works to the advantages of what makes him, Simon Pegg, a very funny actor as a whole, and he plays it very well here. It's a very good movie. It's a very entertaining film, a very underrated film indeed. So, one I say definitely check out. So let's go ahead and move on to the last one we have here, Jonathan Demme's latest film starring Anne Hathaway, Rachel Getting Married. I mean, I still think Philadelphia is the best movie Jonathan Demme ever made, but this is a really good movie regardless. You have Anne Hathaway playing a young woman who's been in and out of rehab for the past 10 years, returning home for the weekend of her sister's wedding, the sister being played by Rosemary DeWitt from Mad Men. And it's a real good movie. It's a really good movie focusing more on Anne Hathaway really being the star of this movie. I think this was the movie that really finally woke people up and made people realize that, hey, that she's not just the girl from the Princess Diaries. I mean, this is a really good actress giving a really good performance that led to her getting an Academy Award nomination, which she probably would have won had she not starred in a really bad comedy that came out just before the Oscars did. We'll get to that one eventually, but Jenny Lumet wrote this, and she wrote the infamous Remember Me, but it shows here that, hey, she can write some good stuff after all. A cast that includes Bill Irwin, Anna Devere Smith, Deborah Winger. I mean, what's the last time you saw Deborah Winger in anything noteworthy since Terms of Endearment? But this is a really good movie. It's one I really enjoyed. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a very good film overall and showed what Anne Hathaway can do as a leading actress. And it's one I say definitely check it out. It's worth it. Rachel Getting Married. And so with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Now, the next time we meet, we've got 6 movies to look at. The remake of Wreck, Quarantine. We have Ridley Scott's latest film, Body of Lies, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe. The new football movie, The Express, the Ernie Davis story. Gil Cannon's follow-up to Monster House, with Bill Murray in the cast, City of Ember. Guy Ritchie's latest film, Rock and Rolla, and also Sally Hawkins starring in Happy Go Lucky, which ended up getting her an Academy Award nomination for that. So 6 films to look at next time around. We'll take a look at those movies coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit that playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell. That's when you get updates on when new videos come out. And we do post new videos here every day. And don't go too far away, because coming up on Time About the Movies Flashback, we're flashing back to June 12th of 1987 with 4 movies, including Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Witches of Eastwick with Jack Nicholson, Susan Sarandon, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Cher, The Believers with Martin Sheen, and $1 Million Mystery. So 4 films to take a look at from 1987. Coming up on Time About the Movies Flashback after I post this up, which will be right after this. So stick around, we will be back.